So this is the National Salt Satyagraha Memorial, and here we have a list of all the marchers who accompanied Gandhi in his march to the sea, which took the marchers from Ahmedabad, from the Sabarmati Ashram, to Dandi, where they arrived on the evening of April 5th, and it is on the morning of April 6th, as described in one of the previous videos, that Gandhi broke the salt law. In this video, I wish to focus principally on the related ideas of walking and the march, the idea of a march. So let's begin with this. I think it can safely be said that there were very few people in Indian history who walked as much as Mohandas Gandhi did. In fact, he walked every day. He walked every day. He walked for approximately 10 kilometers every day. There are photographs, of course, of him with Pyare Lal, his secretary later on, his photographs of him with Mahadev Bhai, who was far more than a private secretary to him. He was like a son to him. The loss of Mahadev at the Aga Khan Palace in 1944 was a great blow to Gandhi's life. Mahadev had been there all along. Mahadev Bhai himself has a diary, and Mahadev Bhai has recorded what it meant to be, what it meant to experience walking with Gandhi. And while Gandhi would walk, he would in fact often dictate letters. He would hold important conversations. Some of the more interesting photographs of him walking are also with Khan Abdul Ghaffar Khan or Badshah Khan, and so on. Now in the Indian past, we can certainly think of people like the Buddha, because what was the Buddha? He was an itinerant preacher, you could say. Preacher is not quite the word, he was an itinerant teacher, right? And he walked. And we know that Shankaracharya, much later on, walked the length and breadth of India. He established 4 dhams, right? 4 outposts, centers, and the 4 corners of India. Partially, some would say, to signify the unity of India. When we think about Gandhi walking across India, should we also think of him as someone who was thinking of the unity of India? That the fact that every place that he put his footprint on becomes part of the fabric of a kind of a history that he is trying to create by walking. Right? So when we're thinking of the march at Dandi, I think in the first instance we should really think about walking, the place of walking, particularly among people who had been religious teachers or preachers. And we know that the sons of India, the large number of sons who occupy that glorious history, which is encompassed under that phrase, which we use for the sake of convenience, called the Bhakti movement, that all of these people also walked. And you could say that Gandhi was walking in that tradition, perhaps in some ways. Now, Gandhi didn't just visit Madurai and Calcutta and Bombay. He went to each of these places and many other major cities 10, 20, 30 times. He actually visited thousands of villages. It's doubtful, and Gandhi himself knew that. Himself said that. He said, it's very doubtful that anyone has walked to as many villages as I have. Right? So there are many contexts in which we can think of it. Let me raise a very different set of contexts in which we can think about walking. One of the great essays that has been written on walking is by Henry David Thoreau. Many people are familiar with the name of Henry David Thoreau in connection with Gandhi because they think of his very famous essay on the duty of civil disobedience. And again, that's a very different story, very different history of what is the role of that essay in shaping Gandhi's own thought? Gandhi himself said that contrary to the impressions that were being conveyed in his own lifetime, that he had borrowed a set of ideas from Thoreau, Gandhi himself said that he was actually already, onto this whole idea of non-violence and civil disobedience before he even encountered Thoreau's essay. But it is nevertheless the case that Thoreau's essay is an essay that deeply touched him. Right? But that's not the essay that we wish to consider here. Henry David Thoreau also wrote an essay called On Walking. And he talks about the joys of walking. And all walking essentially is, he says, genuine walking is purposeless. Right? That is, you go for a walk. You go for a walk, there's no destination. In that sense, the Dandi March is different. There's a destination. Of course, the journey is as important as the destination. So that's why I want to insist that when we think about the march to the sea at Dandi, we don't think simply of that moment, approximately 6:05 a.m., April 6th, 1930, when Gandhi breaks the Salt Law. That is a moment that is enshrined in history. The preceding 25 odd days, from March 12th onwards, right, are just as important. They are part of that journey. They walked every day, the marchers, right? Where they stopped, how long they stopped for, what kind of interactions they had with the people, how the people received them. That's all part of the history of the Dandi March. But going back to Thoreau's essay, we have to start thinking about the philosophy of walking. There is also, of course, people like the great French philosopher, Jean-Jacques Rousseau, right? Rousseau is most well known, of course, for his book on the social contract, but he has a work which is Reveries of a Walker, right? Because he used to take walks in the countryside. And these walks were occasions for reflection. Right? So that's why I think it's important to think about all the different kinds of contexts in which we can think about walking. Walking helps to slow down the pace of life. One of the things that happen under conditions of modernity is the way in which